This is HBR News number 408. Twitter psychs everyone out. The latest on ESG, DEI, and CEI, and why it matters, where we discuss the news of the week and give you the Badger treatment. Hello everybody and welcome to Honey Badger Radio. I hope you guys are enjoying your day and your week this week, and that you are laughing at all of this absurdity so that you're not consumed by it. My name is Brian and I'm here with Hannah Wallen. It's just the two of us today. Mike is visiting his girl in the States, and Mike J, I think, is still involved in some family stuff. So thoughts and prayers, if necessary, are going out. But Hannah and I can definitely handle today's show, and we hope you guys will stick around and hang out with us, because it's going to be a really interesting show. There's a lot of good topics, I think, that we're going to be discussing. So what we're going to be talking about this week is a lawsuit that's been filed by Project Veritas against the former sort of head or founder, James OKeefe. The fiasco involving Twitter, Elon Musk, and the Daily Wire, which I'm sure you may have heard of, that's been making the rounds, and also some important news about the staff at Twitter that you should be made aware of as a consequence of that. Important information regarding what people are calling woke corporatism or woke capitalism. It's a hint, it's none of those things. It's actually more like a cartel. And we're going to go into some of that and more, so stick around. It's going to be a good time. And be sure to join us afterwards for the Patron Only show. On the Patron Only show, I saw this thing. So you guys probably know that Disney's The Little Mermaid came out. And of course, all of the mainstream media is running cover for this film, even though it's generally disliked by basically everybody. It's not even like partisan. It's just not a good movie. But they gotta, the shills have to protect their investments and make sure they can go to all of the conventions. And hey, Lauren, what's up? Or is it Lauren? I see Lauren is in our live show.
Hello.
Lauren is not driving.
It is not Lauren. It is I.
Yes. All right. Hold on. Let me bring Mike in. You don't have to, but thanks for coming.
I wanted to.
We have a randomer cam with us. So anyway, yeah. So for our Patron Only show, we are going to be looking at this article from CBR.com. It's about the writer's strike, but it's not about the writer's strike, if that makes sense. Essentially, it is entitled, "The WGA Strike is a Fight Against Everything Fandoms Claim to Hate." So it's really just kind of like an anti-fan screed that is disguised as, intellectual commentary about the writer's strike.
Of course.
And the subtitle or the subheading is some vocal fandoms aren't supporting the writer's strike, which is baffling because the writers are fighting against everything fans claim to hate. So we'll find out what they mean by that, or if they actually have an inkling of what it is that, I guess you could say consumers are unhappy with, because I'm not even sure if fandom is the correct way to describe these people, because they're not all fans. So, and we will look at that in the Patron show. I'm sure it's going to be juicy cringe, because CBR is a cringe site. It may as well be Jezebel as far as I'm concerned, or the Mary Sue. So if you guys want to join us for that, please consider becoming a Badger by going to feedthebadger.com and setting up a monthly subscription. $5 a month will get you into our Discord, and you'll be able to watch all of the additional content, like this Patron Only content that I'm showing you guys right now. And you'll also be able to watch a bunch of additional things. You'll be able to see some videos before they go live. You'll be able to hang out with our patrons, game streams, there's game nights, there's movie nights, all kinds of fun stuff. So that is feedthebadger.com to give us or sign up for a monthly membership. And if you just want to try it out, go to badgernation.online. It's free. You can peruse like the town square, as it were. It's like a tourist spot where you can hang out, and we are also in this. It's part of the same Discord. You just don't have access to all the rooms, so you can join, and that's for nothing. Just go to badgernation.online and be sure. Hopefully we'll see you guys there. Lastly, if you want to be able to continue to enjoy our content after we have been yeeted from the internet, please go to badgerfeed.com or honeybadgerradio.com. That's where we have archives of our shows. And also, please follow us on Rumble and Twitch and Twitter, because our streams go live there as well. And it might be a good idea in case like the YouTube thing just doesn't work out. Rumble is growing fast, and Twitter might be a really, really great spot to post stuff as well, which we will get into in today's show. So now with all that said, let us now get into today's stories. But first, before we do that, I just want to mention today is June the 6th, D-Day, right? So I want to give some thanks to the brave men who fought in World War II and gave their lives on that fateful day. So just remembering D-Day. I know that we did Memorial Day, I want to say it was last week. So I don't know if you guys know, but yes, today is D-Day, the anniversary of D-Day, I guess. So just letting you know, just remember the men that died on that day and what they fought for. Because I think it's something that doesn't get, like, a lot of people don't even know that it's going on. It's funny because we have 3 days in this month, I think, that are acknowledging men's efforts. We got Memorial Day, which is like 99.9% men, because it's all about the men, the soldiers who have died, and most of those are men, like the overwhelming majority. So it is like more male oriented than not. Then we have D-Day, which is today, and then we're going to have Father's Day later in the month. And isn't it funny that it's also Pride Month? It's almost like that overshadows all those other days.
Well, and every advancement that has been made in actual human rights, like treatment of people who are of alternative sexualities to heterosexuality, that's all been done on men's backs as well.
Yeah.
And like when women got a hold of it, they started twisting it into something else. It became about being in people's faces and being angry that being different gets people, yeah, we're here, we're queer, we're in your face. It wasn't a man that screamed that, right?
Mm-hmm.
But just the advancements of, like not getting fired because you love the wrong person, or not getting dragged to your death behind a truck. Those were done with men's protests. I mean, men getting arrested, men getting killed, men died for that. And that's something that people really ought to think about, because today you see a lot of women calling themselves non-binary and then doing absolutely nothing to demonstrate it, and claiming victimhood if you don't make your whole relationship with them about that. So you really, that's all on men's backs. And in terms of the ongoing argument that happens within the skeptic so-called community about men in the military, even today, right now, in 2023, the current year, only 14% of the entire U.S. military service is female. And it's not because women aren't allowed in. Women have been in the U.S. military for the entire time there has been a U.S. military, right? And women have been allowed in combat roles for a few years now, and there are very few of them that even go for that. So out of the tiny percentage that go into the military, there's an even tinier percentage that are interested in combat roles. Men, on the other hand, the men that stormed the beaches, those guys didn't necessarily get up one day and decide they wanted to do that. They were told by the U.S. government that's what they were going to do, and they were going to be jailed if they didn't. They would be imprisoned for going AWOL if they didn't. So that's the difference. So you can complain about us not thanking women, but the point stands. Men were forced into this. Men were pressured to volunteer for this.
Well, they were pressured by women, too, in many cases.
Yeah, they were pressured by women. The white feather movement was women. And so this was actually really more a male thing that some women participated in, and those women are quite honorable because they chose to, but they didn't have to. And
Right.
this is something that men were dragged into, men are forced into, and it's an issue we should talk about at length in another show. There's it's another upcoming topic on HBR Talk. I'm going to talk about the draft.
Oh yeah, let's do it. I mean, I won't be there, but
yeah, well,
let's
you
in
can.
Spirit.
You are more than welcome anytime you want.
Well, anyway, yeah. So that's not a news story. I just want to remind everyone it is D-Day, so just keep that in mind. And not a small thing. Not a small thing. Some of you may have family that an older family that was there, or at least they may have known someone who was there. So maybe if you have a story about somebody you know that was there on D-Day, maybe share it in the comments. I'd like to read about it. I think that these stories they're gonna vanish into obscurity if we don't talk about them. So
I have family that was in World War II, but not family that was there. Not family that was
alive during World War II.
They were. I have family that. Well, they're not alive now, but I have family in Japan.
Okay. They fought in the war, but they weren't there at Normandy or whatever.
Right.
Okay.
My grandfather was in Japan.
Oh,
and
wow.
I unfortunately don't know very much because it's my dad's father. Which I don't know a whole lot about him. So
yeah, it's not a ton of fun to talk about. I know that we glamorize it in Hollywood, but you know what they say, war is hell. So all right, but anyway, so that was the first thing. I just wanted to get that out of the way. D-Day, thank you so much for the men who died, so that we couldn't be here doing this right now. So all right, and with that said, let's get into the first story. So Project Veritas filed a lawsuit. The company Project Veritas filed a lawsuit on Wednesday against its founder, James O'Keefe, alleging that he violated his employment agreement by establishing a competing organization, which is called, OKeefe Media Group, I believe, and wooing away donors while still on Project Veritas's payroll. Being known as the founder of an organization does not entitle that person to run amok and put his own interests ahead of that organization, the lawsuit says. Defendant James O'Keefe failed in his duties to plaintiff Project Veritas, causing it serious and significant damage. According to the lawsuit, the Project Veritas board of directors placed O'Keefe on paid leave on February 6 following accusations from employees that he mismanaged finances, targeted female employees, because that's always good to ruin someone's reputation, and behaved unprofessionally during team meetings, including by screaming at coworkers and belittling them and their contributions to Project Veritas. Company employees have additionally alleged that O'Keefe had strained relationships with several donors because he was routinely late for meetings and rude at VIP events designed to give donors extra access to O'Keefe, the lawsuit said. And there is other things that they're alleging, and again, this has the source has reached out to O'Keefe for comment. He has declined, or at least they haven't heard from him yet. I just thought, well, I don't know if you guys have any thoughts on this. There isn't a whole lot there, except they seem pretty salty about him leaving the company and then building something else, and a bunch of people following him apparently. So
it sounds like he had. I mean, when you start a company like that, you start it with a vision. That's a media company, and I've seen this happen. My grandmother started a foundation, and there were heads butted between grandma and the organization she brought in to help her with the foundation, in terms of which direction it should go later on. And it can go both ways. Like, my grandma was a genius about many, many things, and the people who she brought in were genius about other things. And they really had some. Now, they worked things out because my grandma was a very open-minded person, and she brought in a very conservative church to work with, and they had some knowledge about their successes and their growth and how to make her company grow and remain stable and successful. And basically they had to listen back and forth between each other about, well, this is what I want to accomplish. This is what we have to do to get there. There's some compromises that have to be made. And I kind of wonder if OKeefe had a vision in terms of purity of message and maybe purity of like for his free speech principles and things like that. Like he probably has a particular political angle that he's working from. And
Yeah.
given that he became famous for exposing Planned Parenthood, it's probably more conservative or libertarian than left wing.
Though he's never really talked about his personal politics, but I take what you're saying. I mean, it's probably not.
Like,
it's fair that
it's probably more right wing than left wing.
Yeah, he's favored by people on the right for what he does.
Right, and he probably is more to the point of removing corruption or exposing corruption, right? And I'm sure there are people in his company that have their own vision of what they think he intended, or what would work better, what would be more effective, what would keep them out of trouble, all those kinds of things. So he probably butted heads back and forth with people in a company like that.
Mm-hmm.
And in terms of getting along with the rest of the company, they're going to nitpick every little thing he does if they have a resentment because he didn't manifest a personality they expected, or a style, a vision, whatever that they expected. So, of course, this kind of thing is going to happen. The thing that really bothers me about this is that you can take your personal vision of, this is the right thing to do, this needs to happen, and I'm going to make it happen, and you start your company and you start doing things and people join in and they become part of it, and then people can come along if you trust the wrong people and you allow too much control within your company with the wrong people, to sit with the wrong people, people that don't maybe share your vision, or people that aren't maybe trustworthy, who don't understand what you're trying to do or don't fully approve of what you're trying to do.
Yeah.
And then they can take it away from you, twist it to suit their own ends, and then sue you for taking your original idea and going somewhere else with it and trying to rebuild.
Yeah.
And that looks like that's what happened here, is that people came in that weren't as trustworthy as he thought they were when he gave them power.
Yeah.
And within the company. And they took his idea and twisted it into something that he didn't approve of. And when he took his original idea somewhere else and started rebuilding, they're trying to stop him from that because they don't want the original idea competing with what they've morphed it into. And I don't know. That's what it looks like. Now, I can't say for sure because not enough has come out from either side, and I think it's partly because, like, these guys have made some pretty nasty allegations there that he's essentially
he's basically
material.
getting Me Too'd, at least,
right?
Which I think is like that's when my hackles go up when somebody says so and so was sexually harassing women or being like chauvinistic or anything like that. I'm like, really, are we doing that? Are we playing that card? Because it is an effective way of destroying a man. By the way, you can't even use it on a woman.
Well, anyway, it's hard to tell anything else about these allegations.
Yeah.
But in that one thing, if they don't prove that beyond a shadow of a doubt, he should sue the crap out of them for defamation or slander.
Absolutely.
Because this is something that, and this needs to be how these types of allegations are handled from now on. Somebody Me Too's you as part of an effort to undo something you did, take you down, damage you, and the allegations are unprovable. Sue them for defamation. And if they can't prove the allegations, then they're going to have to fight that with some other material besides evidence. And like that needs to be, everybody should be handling it that way. And I think OKeefe should be the same. And now, one of the things that happens with me in terms of seeing a conflict like this, right? The minute the Me Too allegations come out, I suspect everything else about the conflict is fake.
Mm-hmm.
Like it doesn't make it more believable to me that O'Keefe deserved to be pushed out of his company and that he deserves to be throttled in terms of creating a new one and doing what he had in mind in the first place. It makes it more apparent to me that the people that he's at odds with within his company are essentially the bad guys. If you want to, they're the wrong side of the argument. The moment that you have women start accusing like a powerful man as part of any kind of an effort to take him down, it indicates that effort is invalid, right? It's one of the reasons why I really didn't like the allegations against Joe Biden. Like, I don't care if he sniffed everybody's hair in the entire country.
Yeah.
Like, we have legitimate things to criticize him about.
Right, exactly.
Right? So that should be the least thing that we worry about. And in terms of Me Too type allegations, they should never be effective because they are overused. The minute that somebody makes a false allegation, and they're overused the minute that the allegation becomes the reason that somebody should be taken out of a position or stopped from doing something that has nothing to do with their relationship with women. And both of those apply here.
Yeah. I mean, I don't. Well, I was just gonna say I can't prove any of this, but considering what I've been learning about what's been happening on Twitter, which we're gonna get to, I wouldn't be surprised if there are people working at Project Veritas that are like trying to like eat it from the inside out. And one of the first things they did was they tried to get rid of O'Keefe because they figured if the company lost their main guy, then they wouldn't be able to carry on. Project Veritas is still doing stuff, but O'Keefe is doing much bigger things on his own now. And I think I don't know. My thinking is that, because I think that's this, kind of like, how do you put it? Like subverting or this kind of like subterfuge that's going on at Twitter, which we're going to get to, and at other companies. If you
wanted to get rid of an organization like this, the best way to do it, or if you wanted to neutralize an organization like this, the best way to do it would be to take it over from the inside and then start doing meaningless projects instead of important projects.
So that's what I'm saying. It looks, and then when he said, okay, fine, I don't need these people, I'll just do my own thing, then they're like, oh, we have to sue him, right? So that's why I find it really fishy. I think that he is an obstacle, and they're trying to eliminate the obstacle because, whatever you think about O'Keefe, like aside, the work that he has done is truly groundbreaking shit that all journalists should be doing, and only he was doing. That like this should be happening on every news station. They should be doing stuff like this, but he's the only person that I know of that's doing it. And I'm not talking about like discussing stories, because he doesn't do that. He has like honeypots. They go into companies. They get in good with people, and then they get him to spill the tea on whatever. And that's like beyond anything. I mean, I praised Andy Ngo, who does a lot of work reporting on Antifa on the West Coast and their sort of the things that they got going on, and he puts himself in a lot of danger. And I got really like upset because some YouTube commentators, that normally talk about the news were criticizing Andy Ngo. They were like, well, he shouldn't have done that. That's really stupid. He should never have done this because their argument was it was putting him in too much risk. And I was like, yeah, but he chose to do it. He knows the risks. Like, he knows the risks, but I think more than that, he knows how important it is to get this information. So I'm like, we should back him up. We shouldn't call him names. We shouldn't say he's dumb. You're not doing it. You're in your compound or your safe little house in Wisconsin or whatever it is, right? You're not doing this work. Only Andy Ngo is doing it. And talking about stories is one thing,
like that,
but getting the story is completely different.
You know, the people that criticized Andy Ngo like that were people that sided with Antifa to begin with. Like, and that's Antifa is violent, right? They are thugs. They are violent thugs. They are not they're paramilitary organization, but they are not freedom fighters, right? They are thugs for an intended communist regime. That's the bottom line with them. And when they attacked him, they were attacking an enemy informant in their minds. So, I mean, he knew the risks. He understood that.
Yeah,
but
I think
what
he does.
Those people were saying was that because he was reporting on their thuggery, because he was reporting on their activities, that he deserved violence. That was what they were saying. They were not just criticizing him as foolish, right? That when you go report on these thugs, they're going to hurt you. Well, it doesn't make them nonviolent, right?
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't. He was not in the wrong for going in there and reporting on them. If their response to someone reporting on their activities is to engage in violence, that indicates they have something to hide, and their activities are illegitimate.
Yeah. Mike, did you want to say something since you're here?
I mean, of all the stuff we talked about, this is kind of a good example of how sometimes a trial can be helpful. Because when shit goes to trial, a lot of people's sources and connections kind of have to bubble to the surface as a matter of legal course. And if that happens, then maybe through this trial, especially if it's televised, like all the good ones, like Kyle Rittenhouse and Johnny Depp and whatnot, then maybe we can get to the bottom of exactly why James O'Keefe really was ceremonially let go, or whatever the real reason, not the series of bullshit reasons we're being told. I mean, the connections that
I'd like to know that. Well, anyway, we should move on, but those are my thoughts. I hope that he wins his case. I think this is all BS, and I guess we'll see if there is anything. So I got some super chows. Thanks, guys, for sending those through. And I got a Rumble rant. What's up, Rumble Squad? Sign up. I'm giving a shout out to the Rumble folks, so I'll read that one first. Shadow Wolf 87 gives us $5 and says, June is also Men's Mental Health Awareness Month, which is another thing that apparently just takes a backseat to Pride. So thank you, Shadow Wolf 87. Maybe Target will make a little section in the front of their store for men's mental health awareness, but I will not hold my breath. Thanks anyways. And Betty Adams says, Grandpa Red was in the Pacific Theater. That is kind of awesome. It's I hope that you're proud of that, and I don't know, I'm moved by that. All right, now Super Chows. Well, so we got one like a few days ago that I didn't read, but it is about last week's HBR News 407. And HBR News 407 commenter gives us $5 and says, woohoo, I'm a soft autist. Soy Pepe. All right, thank you, HBR News 407 commenter. Meredith G gives us $5. Meredith the Top G says, HBR News number 408, non-compete agreements are unenforceable when the person is the person that developed the book of business. You can't prevent someone from making an income, but what make the Veritas suit stupid is that it's a non-profit. Their donor list, by the way, is publicly available thanks to the Veritas tax return. This is BS. All right, well, that is useful information. Thank you, Meredith. You are the top G. And then For the Badgers gives us $5 and says, I'm here to offer some support. Hope this helps. Everything helps. Yeah, we really appreciate it. If you guys also could hit that like button, it might give us a little bit of extra reach if somebody else is just perusing the tubes and they come across us. So anything you can do would be greatly appreciated, because we want to keep doing this work. Okay. So thank you so much. Let us move on now to the next story. We're going to talk about Twitter. So last week, the Daily Wire reached an agreement with Twitter to host their documentary, What is a Woman?, which is a year-old documentary. on the website in the film's entirety. So they were going to host the entire film, What is a Woman, on Twitter, because he's trying to do video hosting on Twitter now. So, however, despite being assured by Twitter that everything was greenlit and ready to go, the Daily Wire found that the reach of the movie was being blocked and that Twitter was limiting its visibility. It also wasn't allowed to retweet, or it won't display if you try to quote tweet it or whatever. So that was also an issue. After the initial upload, the tweet was tagged with a warning that read the following, quote, "Visibility limited. This tweet may violate Twitter's rules against hateful conduct," end quote. Co-CEO of the Daily Wire, Jeremy Boring, issued a statement explaining that he was contacted by Twitter, who told them that they, quote, "would no longer provide us any support and would actually limit the reach of the film and label it as hateful conduct because of misgendering." The misgendering in question refers to 2 instances in the film, not done by the host, by the way, but by people that the host interviewed. So the Matt Walsh is the guy who hosted and starred in the film, but he's not the one that is guilty of the misgendering. It was 2 of the people that he spoke to. The misgendering in question refers to 2 instances. One, a father refers to his 14-year-old daughter as her, and another, which I guess he's supposed to be referred to as him, and in another, a shop owner uses the wrong pronouns when arguing with a transgender woman. Elon Musk, owner of Twitter, was slow to react, reportedly due to being overseas on a business trip. But when Musk caught wind of the situation, he promised that this was all done in error, stating, quote, "This was a mistake by many people at Twitter, and the movie is definitely allowed," end quote. While it did take some time, the throttling was undone, and the original link to the tweet was allowed to be retweeted, with Musk himself also retweeting it. And he also said in a message that every parent of a child should watch this film. As the situation dies down, Musk has been rumored to be cleaning house as reports of resignations and firings are heard. One of the most high-profile resignations comes from Twitter's former head of trust and safety, Ella Irwin. She abruptly resigned last Thursday and was promptly removed from the company's Slack. Since its debut, What is a Woman has garnered over 176 million views on Twitter.
See, they're already upon us. In no time at all, they've disabled our shields and infiltrated the base, and they're already living in the air ducts, and we're going to have to chase them in some kind of nail-biting set piece. Intersectionalists really are like the abstract monster in a sci-fi horror movie, like a horde of fully automatic or gay space zombies or something, and they're everywhere. You think you've found sanctuary for like a moment, but then they find a way in through the cracks in the doors by taking the form of a cloud of quantum foam that simultaneously is and is not what it says it is. You're not vetting people enough, Elon. I know you can't discriminate on grounds of genetic appearance or anything. It would be illegal if you did it, but there are many people, many of them in high places, who are very much hell-bent on discriminating against people on grounds of their genetic appearance, namely the pale ones and the masculine ones. And functionally speaking, it's not illegal when they do it, because they will get away with it. Surely if there's one thing you can discriminate against, it's the given candidate's propensity for that kind of genetic discrimination. Mm-hmm. And they appear to be stealthing their way in. Like, some of them are stupid, some of them are evil and stupid, but some of them are just evil. And they're just clever enough to sneak through the first line of defense. So you got to vet harder. You got to vet deeper. At least look for the red flags, the blue hair, the Karen attitude. You got to look for pronouns in bio. You got to look for hashtag whatever. You got to look for pride flags up and down the place, especially that blue and yellow one that everyone loves so much.
Yeah.
I don't know which cross-dressing money sink of a stooge that one represents, but whatever. Point is, you got to get tough on these people, because they would do the same thing to you and worse.
Much worse.
In a heartbeat. If your standards of defense are critically lower than their standards of offense, this shit is going to happen. Do you want wine aunts, Elon? Because that's how you get wine aunts.
Well, there's such a thing as giving people enough rope to hang themselves. And that is what I talked about it when Musk first took over Twitter, and he did not fire all these people immediately. Like, he let them choose to stay on. He made a ultimatum. This is what we're going to do. This is how we're going to do it. And if you don't want to be part of this, you are free to leave. And there's no shame in leaving now. But if you stay, you're agreeing to be part of this. And of course, these people stayed. Right? These are not people that, well, maybe some of the underlings were, but the head of this, she was part of the organization under the old leadership. She was not a new employee, and she was one of the people that was like, everybody was like, no, don't keep her, get her out of there. Well, he gave her a chance, and she blew it. Like, he very publicly, like maybe a month or two ago, maybe even a little longer, ended the rule against misgendering on Twitter. Everybody knows this. That's on Twitter. Everybody that was on the team knew this. The public knew this. There isn't anybody who can honestly claim that they were involved in Twitter during that time and didn't know that there is no rule against misgendering. Right? So there's that. And they enforced it anyway when he was out of the country. And you can maybe get away with that in an organization where you're working in retail and the person you're enforcing against is a consumer in some retail outlet. You're in Detroit and the outlet's in Nebraska, and that person maybe can't get a hold of your CEO. They got to call customer service and blah, 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 but not in social media, because everything you do in social media is in public. Everybody can see it happen. The organization that was blocked can talk about it on your social media in public. And they didn't block, some Karen in Nebraska. They blocked a big media person that's going to be able to use his own platform, turn around and point out to the rest of the world, well, Twitter did this to me. So Musk was going to find out about it. It's not something they could have been sneaking under the radar. And it's not like a situation with YouTube where if we get shadow banned or throttled or get a strike that, our video is hidden for a short amount of time after it's been published, like once that's done and it becomes visible, its reach has been limited effectively because newer videos are going to be more easy to find. They're going to be easier to see, and they're going to be higher in the algorithm and all that.
Yeah.
This basically resulted in more visibility for the thing they were trying to hide. Musk retweeted
at the end of
it,
the day, yeah.
right?
But I don't think they think
So
that far ahead. So
they Streisand themselves, right?
yeah.
But in any case, what he did there was actually kind of genius, because now, previously they could have said, well, he fired us for our political beliefs. He fired us for, being feminist. We're going to sue, all this other stuff. But now, because he made rules and they broke the rules and they're fired for going against the owner of the company, they can't come back after him. Right. There's nothing they could take to court and say, well, we were wrongfully discharged. We were discriminated against. This was, and nobody else is going to hire them either, because
They shouldn't.
It's one thing for a team member to have principles and stick to their principles. It's another thing for a team member to put their principles ahead of the principles of the owner of the company. And so, the whole thing, I think that was pretty well handled, actually.
I agree.
It's interesting to see him come in and clean house afterward, because that indicates that there wasn't just a head of the team telling the team do this, and then the team just was in lockstep because the head said do this. It sounds like there was a bit of a conspiracy within the company to continue practices that Musk had discontinued, and just do it behind his back. And they went after somebody who was a little bit too big to go after secretly, and it bit him in the ass. So they grabbed too far, they squeezed too hard. But that just means everybody that's been saying they've been getting censored during the last few months by these people, that nothing had changed at Twitter, they were a little bit right. So we ought to watch and see what happens now that these people are gone. See if there is an undoing of some of that throttling that was taking place.
Yeah. Well, here's what I think. I think that Elon Musk, he initially went in and he fired like 80% of the employees. And his reasoning had nothing to do with whatever their personal beliefs were. It was basically that they were just, there was too much fat on this particular pig.
Yeah.
And he was like eliminating the fat, like they were doing nothing. I mean, they were probably uploading those TikTok videos. Here's a day in the life working at Twitter, and it's like ping pong and video games and cafe
they weren't doing any
lattes
work
and stuff.
Yeah.
So he trimmed the fat, and it meant firing a whole bunch of people, which I would assume didn't have a lot of skills, and they were probably just there because they knew somebody else who was there, and they all just kind of like gave each other jobs and gave each other, cushy salaries, and like they got to work in a nice air-conditioned office for like 8 hours a week or something. And so he was like, no, this is not how you get things done. So he fired a bunch of people, but it wasn't based on their beliefs. And he probably tried to make clear to all of his employees in some kind of a announcement or meeting that he won't be tolerating, like, that this is a free speech platform, and he won't tolerate dissent. But the problem is that he's got true believers, actual like woke progressive cult people that work in his business. So when he says free speech, they might even agree, but still think that there's a difference between free speech and hate speech. And so therefore they're going to correct things, and they might even think they're doing him a favor, But what I suspect is that there will be more instances like this, because I don't think that Musk actually knows how awful it is, how bad this cult is, how much damage they can do, and how rampant this ideology is. Because it's not like it's like you said, they're just evil people. They're angry, they're full of hatred, they want what they want, and they don't care how they get it, and they will break every rule. And yeah, he'll be firing them, but that's like, waiting until you see a cockroach before you kill it, for example. Because if you see one, then there's hundreds inside your walls. So there's the sickness at Twitter is the same as the sickness in all of big tech, and you guys are gonna find out in the next story that it's everywhere. Like this is a very serious problem, and the goal is simply to destroy Western society through whatever means are necessary, because they hate it here. And so like it can't be understated, and I don't think Musk is aware of how bad that is. He doesn't. I think that he just thinks, well, there's a couple of blue-haired, radical feminists. No, I mean, yes, there are those people, but then there's people like the person that you made CEO of Twitter, who, she doesn't have blue hair, she doesn't look crazy, but she's got the same crazy ass beliefs, and she's probably better at implementing them because she doesn't appear. She's like more of a Hannah Cox than she is a Chanty Banks. Because like a Chanty Banks or a Mona Alathawi or a Lori Penny, I mean, they're obviously like, Clementine Ford, they're obviously crazy feminists that like just say the wildest shit, and they do it specifically to piss people off. So it's
loud,
like,
proud morons is
they're
the way I like to refer to them.
But those aren't the ones
idiocy
that you need to worry about, because you can see them. The ones you need to worry about are the ones that appear rational, and they will even say, oh yeah, those women are crazy. They're radical feminists. I'm not a radical feminist. I believe in basically all the same stuff, but I'm completely different because look at how nice I'm being. Would you like some tea? And so those are the ones you have to worry about. And I mean, they're everywhere. I mean, like before Musk bought Twitter and took over, I remember that people like on the what was it, the trust and safety, like, you know, board or whatever it is on Twitter. It was like Zoe Quinn and Anita Sarkeesian were on that board. Like, they were involved.
the whole literally Who club was on that
like
board.
That's how
literally why.
That's how radical it is. And what I'm saying is that, and look, I don't envy him for not knowing about this, because he was busy, like, you know, building his company and doing something important. But now that he's involved with this, he's really gonna have to get, like, he's got to do an absolute sweep of every person in the company so that this doesn't happen again, because it will happen again. They're not done. Like, you know, Allison messaged me about the title of my show, where it says Twitter psychs everyone out, which is to say that they promised something to the Daily Wire, and this is just, the Daily Wire is just one example. This isn't just happening to them. And then they said, okay, good, it's agreed. And then they put the video out, and then they restrict it, and they put all these warning labels on it. And then Elon gets wind of it, and he fixes it. And then on top of that, he gives it even more exposure because he tweets it out himself, which he may not have done otherwise. Maybe they would have just had the regular reach that Daily Wire normally has, right? What was I going to say? So yeah, I mean, like, this.
Oh, you said Allison messaged you about that.
Yeah, Allison, she asked me about that, and I explained to her what it was, and she said that she also got, like, you know, a post removed for, I don't know, transphobia or something, right? And we know Allison's not, like, she doesn't have a problem with the trans folks. Like none of us do, really, you know? But, like, they did it anyway, and I think it was because she came up on that same radar. And I'm sure that a lot of other people, you know, if they're not careful about how they word their tweets, or, you know, the algorithm might pick it up, if there is one, or an employee might just be like, you know what, this doesn't seem bad, but I think it's a dog whistle, and then you get, you know, throttled, you get a post removed, you get limited visibility, whatever it is. So there are ideologically possessed people that work at Twitter, and I think it's a lot. I think it might be more like the majority, honestly. And because you have to look at the culture of the people who work there, I think that Twitter is still based out of California. So, you know, it's like it's going to be still very similar. So something has to be, he needs to do a clean sweep, is what I'm saying. I'm not saying fire everybody, but I'm saying be really adamant. Don't think, oh, I got rid of that person, so it's over now. I don't think he thinks that, but I think that's important. So.
And there's a rift in the U.S. that really needs to be closed in terms of free speech, and it's something that people don't understand about freedom, right? Nobody is saying that people who are trans do not have the right to identify as they see fit. You have the right to identify as you see fit. If I wanted to, I could identify as a truck, and under the principles of free speech, under the principles of the First Amendment, under the principles of civil rights in general, nobody could tell me that I can't say that, right? Nobody can tell me that I couldn't dress up as a truck. I might not be able to be taken seriously by other people. That's the problem. And where the disconnect is between the old school civil rights activism within the LGBT movement and the modern trender movement is in whether you have the right to force other people to take you seriously, to respect your choices, to agree with your choices, and to join you in your choices. So you have every right to identify as you see fit. You have every right to identify as you feel and as you determine for yourself. That's the right of self-determination is paramount. Anybody that takes it away from you isn't taking your right away. They are failing to respect a natural right that you have, that they should, be respecting. But you don't have the right to tell other people how they think. You don't have the right to tell people how to look at you. You don't have the right to tell people how to view your choices. And you don't have the right to force people to agree with you. There is no right to be believed. There is no right to be accepted socially. There is no right to be liked, trusted, or even respected. Nobody has a right to expect respect from other people and enforce that expectation using any kind of authority. It's just not there. As long as your boundaries aren't being violated, your physical boundaries aren't being violated by someone touching you, right? And as long as you're not being discriminated against by someone telling you that you can't have a job that you're qualified for in every other way because they disagree with you politically. Not because you misrepresent the company, not because you do anything that damages the company, but because they disagree with you politically. It's the only type of discrimination that really exists in terms of something like this. And that's where people don't seem to understand there is a boundary between your rights and other people's rights.
Yeah,
And
well, yeah,
thinking of yourself as a victim of other people's refusal to join you in your identity politics doesn't make your rights override their rights. Your rights stop at their boundaries. And the only way to win the battle of getting people to treat you with dignity, respect, humanity, and equality is persuasion. Like,
well, you can start by
positive
treating them that
persuasion,
way.
right? Well, and positive persuasion only works if you don't run to the authorities and demand people call you what you want to be called, and demand people date you, and demand people treat you like you're something special and not just another human being with a different set of experiences and so on. Right? That's the hard part. And unfortunately, while, like I said, old school activists recognize that and engaged in activism by being human in public and allowing themselves to display humanity in the face of meanness and violence and even completely being shut out of society. And until other people looked and said, gosh, this is the people that are doing this to these folks are cruel and we don't want any part of that. We're going to be, just as normal and kind to these people as any other people. Stop it. Right? Those guys were pioneers of human rights.
Yeah.
The people who are going along and saying, well, we're going to make this organization force everybody to use our pronouns. We're going to make this organization force everybody to talk to us as we want to be talked to and criticize or censor their criticisms of our political perspectives and so on. Not civil rights pioneers. Okay.
No, that's tyrants.
You're actually authoritarian.
Yeah.
You're actually setting the movement back. You're actually the ones creating the situation where there is pushback against stuff that we'd made progress on. And that progress is being rolled back because of you. It is your fault.
It's true, right? but that's what they want.
So
this is all on purpose.
Learn that freedom isn't something that is only for people who are victims.
Yeah.
Or who identify as victims. Learn that freedom it belongs to everybody, and you can control yourself, but you can't control other people. You can provide evidence and make good arguments, but you can't make people believe them. Right? That is on them. Yep. And that's the way it is. And if progress is slow because of that, that's fine, because that slow progress is more stable and more permanent, and it takes something really stupid like going back on that human rights activism and becoming the authoritarians that you hated or that your predecessors hated and feared to undo it.
Yeah. All right, so I'm gonna move on. The next story is related to this one, because I think it says a little bit more about what's not only happening with Twitter, but also what's happening with a lot of other big woke corporations, which is to say most, if not almost all of them. And it should, like, this is something that I've known for a while, but it's good to hear it being said, and it's kind of like getting out there. So let us know what you guys think about this one in the comments, by the way, and feel free to send us super chows or rumble rants or super chats if you want to add to the commentary. So, all right, next story. So, during an appearance on Fox News, a former Anheuser-Busch exec detailed the goings-on behind the scenes. Anson Frericks, former president of sales and distribution for Anheuser-Busch, explained how massive firms like BlackRock, Vanguard, and State Street use their trillions of dollars worth of assets, as well as their clout, to promote woke politics and policy. In doing so, these companies do the bidding of progressive lawmakers who manage the pension funds that the companies benefit from. Frericks explains an example of this, stating, quote, "In California, for example, they recently have mandated those large pension funds that they divest from things like fossil fuels and oil and gas, and then when Bill de Blasio, former mayor of New York, was there, he did the same thing. But they also tell BlackRock, State Street, and Vanguard if they're going to manage their money, they have to commit to things like ESG, which is environmental, social, and governance, right? As well as DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion, and adopt firm-wide commitments that they therefore then force onto all the major companies in corporate America," end quote. And I want to add something to this. So the gist is this, okay? Yes, there are woke people that work at these corporations. Yes, they're doing their best. Like, you can see it in, you can look at the Zoom meetings at Disney where the woman is like, I try to cram in queerness wherever I can. Yes, but you have to ask yourself, like, there is something above that. So this is basically like organized crime. These are mobsters, and they're going into businesses and they're saying, it doesn't look very diverse here, and if you don't want to lose your business or lose a lot of money, you got to do what we say. And that's essentially, it's a shakedown. That's what they do. James Lindsay's done a great video on it. Actually, he made it like yesterday, I think, that you guys should check out. But to add more, so you guys probably already know about ESG, which is the environment, that's a score that you get. It's basically the social credit score from China that corporations have and companies have. Then you have the DEI, which is the thing that also gets pushed as, I think it's a byproduct of ESG. So that's the diversity, equity, inclusion thing, which basically affects your hiring and who you can have and who you can't, okay? And then you have this. This is the last thing. I gotta find the name of it. Hold on a second here, because it's like DEI, but it's a little bit different. And I just need to look it up really quick, but it's very important because this is also a massive effect. And so what these companies are doing is they're responding to these, I would call them incentives, but they're really like threats, okay? Threats to the business. The Corporate Equality Index, so CEI is what it's called. The Corporate Equality Index is a score for your corporation. All of the major corporations, like Anheuser-Busch, like Miller Lite, like Disney, they have a score that if they're doing everything right, it's at 100, okay? And anybody who is a potential employee that's looking for a career, that's trying to get a job with these companies, which, I think a lot of people, I used to really want to work for Disney when I was young. They might get their education, get all the skills together, and go, and whether or not they hit that 100 score, or whatever the top score is, will show whether or not they are a recommended business because of their inclusion, equity, and all of these other sort of anti-meritocratic, these anti-meritocratic beliefs. Okay, and so what happens is they say, well, you're going to lose your score if you don't follow our rules, and they'll drop down the score below 100, and then it won't show up as a recommended business to work at. They'll basically say you don't want to work at this company because they're shit, they're not good to people, whatever. So it's not even really happening within the corporations. It's not, by the way, about greed, which is a common argument that gets made, because they're literally not able to function in a free market because it's not a free market and the government backs it up. So you have all of these government institutions, these lobby groups, these organizations, like these equality organizations, right? And you have like they're like activists essentially, and they are all shaking down corporations, and that's why when June comes around, all of these companies put rainbows all over their shit because they're trying to keep their score up. So there is something happening that is more top down than the corporations themselves. It's coming from the government, and that's what this interview on Fox revealed, and it made me look into this corporate equality index score, which is again, it's part of the ESG, it's part of the DEI. So this is bad. Like this is like why you have people who don't know how to do their job working at companies, because they're diverse, so they get the job. Right? They don't have to be good at it. And so this is a big problem, and companies can't really opt out of it. So if I think that their theory is if they get everybody to do it, then there's no place to go unless you have a tiny mom and shop business. And guess what? What happened to tiny mom and shop businesses over the last couple of years? Well, they were closed down. How many of them? Most of them. So now it's just big corporations. It's just Amazon. It's just Walmart. It's just Target. And so, and all of those companies, they also have to follow all these rules. So we're looking at, I think we're getting a peek at how these companies are being essentially forced to use wokeness at the cost of, and I'm not saying that they can't just say, fuck you and do what they want. I think they can, and I think they should. But we're basically getting a peek at this, and now we can see that it's not simply, McGreedy CEO, because like you're not going to benefit if you're not giving the customers what they want. So anyway, that's like the short version of what I wanted to say about that. I think this is a huge deal. But
you really have to wonder, as you were saying earlier, to what degree, I mean, the highest of the high-ups at the likes of BlackRock and Vanguard know exactly what they're doing. And it's tempting to say, yeah, of course they do. I mean, the millions of peasants doing their bidding have no idea. They're just running on instinct. But whatever, sinister oligarchy of sort of cigar chomping big shots is in charge of this scam, they obviously know exactly what they're doing. And it looks suspiciously exactly like what a foreign power would do to erode its enemy's civilization from the top down. But to be honest, I think it's even more sinister than that. I think the delusion that's plaguing the peasant is the very same delusion plaguing the royalty. By royalty, in this case, I mean corporations. And yes, I will say it like a hippie says it, corporations. But yeah, corporations, they're just machines that are built for a purpose. It goes, corporation does thing, corporation gets results. If return yes, repeat line. And it all depends on what you feed into the machine and what you tell it to do. Well, this oligarchy of cigar chompers has told this machine to point its sights at the center of a rainbow and proceed at ludicrous speed. Step 2, question mark. Step 3, profit. And if there is indeed profit at the end of the line, then no wonder the fat cats keep pushing the ludicrous speed button. Somebody somewhere is profiting from this, but it's not the American people. It's not.
Do you know who one of their number one donors is? Can you guess?
I think I can guess. Can I say it?
I don't want to say the G word because I know people think it's a little overused, but yeah.
Yeah, the point is that there's more at play here than just the corporate machine. There's the human machine. I think it's very possible that whatever oligarchs are in charge of this, they take a shallow glance at the notion of empowering women and fighting racism and saving the planet. And they go, that sounds good. I know that's what I'm supposed to say. And statistically speaking, I'm probably a clinical psychopath. But even I can ascertain, through the media I consume, that the world is full of misogynists, white supremacists, and planet haters or whatever. And that anyone in their right mind would be on board with this. And look what happens when we feed it into the machine. It gets the desired result, the one we won't disclose the details of. And what more could we ask for? we're doing the right thing morally, thus clearing our conscience from the other thing. Yeah, I put it to you that the cigar chomping fat cats are human beings too. They're just as susceptible to the gynocentrism of human nature as anyone else is, and that is something that can change, not the nature, but susceptibility to it. We can't collapse the machine that makes corporations run. That thing is just a giant intestine. It's not for thinking; it's for moving shit about. But there's that linchpin of moral certainty that makes all of this possible. When people believe they can get away with anything because they have the correct idea of a genetically superior profile, they will be operating the heavy machinery of corporate capitalism under the influence of a dangerous drug that we quite euphemistically call woke. Corporations are vehicles. The vehicles we build are necessary for the civilization that we've paradoxically built with them. But there is a very good reason we don't let any old Tom, Dick, and Harry take the wheel. We make people get a heavy goods vehicle qualification before we let them run amok with a bulldozer in the calm suburban housing of our society.
Mm-hmm.
Well, there we have a whole other kind of words. Oh, Killdozer, why do you like this?
And that we really have to stop calling this capitalism.
It's not. I know. I've been saying this for years. I've been saying that for years.
So I'm just gonna run through this real quick. All right. Socialism is the public ownership of all property through government control. So when socialists tell you, well, socialism isn't just every time the government does things. In a way, yes, it is. Like when the government comes in and controls how businesses are run, that is socialistic. The more government control there is over minute aspects of commerce, and not just you can't steal from people and you can't step on each other's boundaries and so on. You can't break into somebody's business and take things without paying for them and blah blah blah. Right? All of that is socialism. When the government comes in and says, well, you have to hire people because of their ethnic background or their gender or their anything other than how they do their job, that's socialism. Yeah. Anytime the government comes in and says only this one business can do this thing and nobody else can do anything like it, that's socialism. That's control over a property on behalf of the public. That's the government controlling how you use your property. So that is a socialistic thing. So corporate capitalism, crony capitalism doesn't exist. There is no such thing as crony capitalism because it's not capitalism. Right. As soon as the government is used to create the type of monopoly that we think the government exists to prevent, that is not capitalism. That is covert socialism. And it's becoming not very covert, and that's why people are upset. Right now, in terms of all of this other stuff, the ESG ratings, the diversity, inclusion, and equity ratings, and all that stuff, none of that could happen without the control of a governing body.
Yep.
You couldn't stop Main Street from competing with Wall Street by making those ratings the more important thing for people to be able to do business. You wouldn't be able to use the government to punish businesses that don't follow those standards, for instance, without government force. So this becomes another ANCAP told you so.
Mm-hmm.
The government is also a machine, but it's not the same kind of machine as a corporate machine. A corporate machine does things that humans tell it to do. The government is a machine that is designed to tell humans what to do.
Corporate machines couldn't exist without the government. There would be no corporations.
Yeah,
without the
corporations are
government.
not even a free
Literally,
market thing. They're like
incorporating
they're government.
is
They're created by government.
when you incorporate, you register your incorporated business through a governing body. It isn't something that happens organically. There just is no such thing without the government.
No, I mean, like, the fact that we the first sign is that corporations are considered people in the eyes of the state. So that shouldn't be. But yeah, Hannah's right. Corporations are not a product of a free market. They are the product of state intervention. I'll put it that way.
Yeah.
Anyway, I'm sorry, Mike, I cut you off.
Yeah, I overused the word corporation.
That's fine.
Everything down as far as private companies.
Yeah, a lot of people, they use it. They're quick to use it. And I think, like what Hannah said, I think the language has to change because we're going to keep falling into this trap of, like using the word capitalism wrong, pointing the finger at corporations when we should be looking higher up, things like that. So,
well, I'll put it this way. When people come back to you and say, I'm a private company, all right, well, the moment that company is, you could say, in cahoots with the government, it's tied to the government tells the company how to run things, and the company tells the government how to run things, and the company can use the government to limit your actions, it's no longer a private company.
Yeah, absolutely. Right? Agreed.
It's 100%. Not private anymore. It's
people
not.
They have to recognize that, because if you don't, we're just gonna keep making the same mistakes. It starts with identifying the elements correctly.
If I worked for the city of Dayton, all right, as a contractor, let's say, and my contract with the city of Dayton was for tree trimming, and in the course of tree trimming in the city of Dayton, I purchased my own truck, and I used my own truck to get to and from and to transport branches and blah, 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 right? And I could say, well, that's my truck. It's my private property. But in the course of doing my job as a contractor for the city of Dayton, I ran over your dog, right? It's not acceptable. It's not true. If I then turn around, or the city of Dayton then turns around, or some third party then turns around and says, well, the city of Dayton didn't run over your dog. Actually, yeah. The city of Dayton ran over your dog in the form of a contractor who was going to and from a location on the orders of the city of Dayton and was getting paid, right? So there is some link, there is some connection, and it gets even more deep. If the city of Dayton says, well, you can't just buy any truck, you have to buy a Ford. It has to be Ford. It can't be some other brand. Then they've told me what kind of truck to buy. And if the brakes failed because it was a flawed, make or something like that, or the city of Dayton said, well, you have to get it maintained at this location only, and they screwed up and the brakes failed and I ran over your dog. Each of those things becomes more and more of a connection to the city of Dayton as being responsible for me running over your dog, as much as I am responsible for running over your dog because I failed to steer away. And that's where those little, as we get into the tidbits of the state telling this company they have to hire somebody based on the color of their skin or their gender or their religion, and not just because they're good at their job, or the state telling a business that they have to have certain policies that they impose on their consumers, and then the company imposing those policies on the consumers. It's no longer a private company imposing these policies. It is now the state telling a private company they have to impose these policies. Or if the state limits you to this one bank, and other banks, you can't do business with other banks. You can't do business with credit unions. You can't do business with local small bank A in your community. Then you're still in that situation where the states, in anything they impose on you, anything that bank says you have to do, the state has imposed it, even though the state's not the one that made the rule, the bank is. Well, you are not allowed to work with another bank, so you have no choice. These are things that people are failing to grasp when they simplify it to a private company.
Yep.
There is no such thing as a private company. The shit is all intertwined.
Yep.
Their connections look like that the crazy conspiracy wall meme.
With the red threads, yeah.
Yeah.
You're a smart motherfucker, that's right.
All right. Well, we're gonna move on to the last story. I do have one bonus story that we might get to, that I just thought was really funny. But let's move on to what is like technically the last story. So this is about January 6th, and I know that Hannah has a lot to say. I want to add something at the end of this too, like something that I learned today. So this is actually like a little bit of an update. All right, so the United States government is going after money donated to January 6th defendants and prisoners through crowdfunding platforms. For over 2 years, the U.S. government has pursued and punished anyone involved in the protests at the U.S. Capitol on January 6, 2021, the darkest day in our nation's history. Where were you on January 6th? I was here at home. I wanted to go up there, but my wife wouldn't let me, and it's probably good, because I probably would be in solitary confinement along with several other people that didn't even enter the building. The FBI is still, quote, seeking the public's assistance in identifying individuals, end quote, whom they suspect were involved in the protests, saying they, quote, have deployed our full investigative resources and are working closely with our federal, state, and local partners to aggressively pursue those involved in these criminal activities, end quote. In what several January 6ers see as a new effort to further persecute those who have already been arrested, the government is trying to confiscate money collected by January 6 defendants and prisoners through crowdfunding platforms. Most of the fundraising efforts appear to go through Give, Send, Go, which is described as the #1 free Christian fundraising site. I actually didn't know Give, Send, Go was a Christian thing. I thought it was just an alternative to, like whatever the other ones are called. I don't even remember, Kickstarter or whatever.
Kickstarter, GoFundMe.
Yeah, GoFundMe. That was the one I was thinking. GoFundMe. Tim Rivers, co-founder of J6 Patriot News and founder of American Gulag Chronicles channel, is helping January 6 prisoners by collecting donations for them and their families. Rivers says prosecutors are going to the individual GSG accounts and are, quote, literally copying and pasting the entire total of their donations and asking judges to award that as a fine, end quote. An Associated Press review of court records shows that the prosecutors in over 1,000 January 6 cases are asking judges to impose fines in addition to other fines and prison sentences strictly to consume the donations they receive from supporters. So far this year, the AP's calculations show that prosecutors have sought more than $390,000 in additional fines, okay, against at least 21 January 6 defendants in amounts ranging from $450 to over $71,000. And I want to add to that a story that I just found out about today. These are videos, so I'm not going to play them, but I'll just read you the headline. Footage confirms open Senate door allowed 300 to enter the Capitol. So we've seen footage of people just being let in, and there's basically just more and more of this coming out. And the fact is, like, there were, from what we can tell, there was very little actual damage done. And most of the people were let in, and they walked around, and they were escorted by the guards and the police, and nothing happened except for the one protester who was shot by a, I guess, Capitol security or whatever. We never learned his name. And that woman is dead. And I think her mother was arrested or something because she was like protesting outside the Capitol. It's absolutely insane. But anyway, so that's what we have right now. Again, I think it's important because the media is never going to tell you this. A lot of people were imprisoned. People that didn't even enter the building. People that were outside. And some of them are in, like, they're in solitary confinement. And it is just the worst. Anyway, nothing like this happens in this country or should. But Hannah, I know that you're champing at the bit. So
and part of what really gets me about this, I just had somebody send me a link to a video of an attorney talking about a case, and I think this is like a year-old video, and I think I tweeted it out, but I'm not sure. Like, I just subscribed to this guy because of this video, but he was talking about a defendant who had a defense that he was going to present in court. Right. And the prosecution figured he was going to make that defense because it was a potentially valid defense. That he had a story as to why he was where he was and did what he did that he got arrested for. And the prosecution asked the judge to block him from arguing that defense. And the judge allowed it. And he just got a new trial right before that video was made, because it was deemed to be a due process violation, telling the defendant that he could not mount that defense. And it was
his name, by the main chance, was his name Michael Bird?
I don't.
Someone in the chat is saying his name is Michael Bird. I don't know if it is.
I don't remember his name, but I'll give you the case. Like, I wasn't going to get into all this because I didn't want to take the time, but briefly, the defense was this, right? The man was in somebody else's house, hiding in a closet, and the homeowner confronted him and was shot. He shot the homeowner. The homeowner didn't die, and he filed, charges against him, and I think sued him and everything. The defendant was having, according to his story, oh no, that's the police shooter. Okay, no, that's not the same guy. All right. The defendant, well, now that I've started, I better finish it so people understand what I'm talking about, right? Because that sounds pretty cut and dried, that, he was accused of burglary and attempted murder, and he was convicted initially on those charges because he wasn't allowed to mount his defense. Well, his defense was this. He was having an affair with the man's wife. The wife asked him to feed her cats. He could prove that he had been in the house repeatedly, that he knew where the cat food was, that he knew the cats.
Erotic.
Yeah. and he he actually was familiar with the house and everything. And the affair was real. The cat feeding was real. He didn't want to get caught in the house, so he hid when the husband came home. The husband wasn't supposed to be home. And then the husband confronted him and attacked him. And I guess he took the gun from the husband and shot him. So he was defending himself against an attacker in a situation where he was not trespassing. He was invited by the other homeowner into the home. And, it's just not as cut and dried as everybody thought. So he got a new trial based on that. And his new trial was based on the judge not allowing him to make that defense when it was a potentially real defense, and it was a potentially exonerating defense. Because if he was in the house with permission of the wife, then the homeowner doesn't have stand your ground as a reason to attack him, and his defense of himself under attack in that situation is valid. So yeah, so there's that, right? So that's a situation where it has been ruled that the state doesn't have the right to interfere with a defendant's defense in the courtroom. Potentially, if he ruled that, or if he wanted to argue that aliens from outer space had beamed him into the house and somebody else shot the guy that wasn't even there, that something crazy like that'd be a different story, right? Now, in this instance, in January 6th instance, the state is attempting to interfere with defendants' ability to fund their defense. They can't pay their lawyers, then they don't have a defense, right? And this isn't just a one-off, right? They have attempted to say what these people could argue, what evidence they could put forth in court, and this is a standard procedure that federal law enforcement uses. They used this in the Michigan kidnapping case, where the guys accused of trying to kidnap the Michigan governor, their defense was interfered with. They have used this against other defendants that were lower profile, and they will continue to use it as long as they can get away with it. So it's not something new. Well, your right to defense in a court case like this, your right to do things like submit exculpatory evidence, to retain an attorney, and to I'm looking at the chat here. No, you don't have the right. You don't have stand your ground, even if you don't know the person. If, for instance, while you're at work, your house has a plumbing issue, and your wife hires a plumber, and the plumber comes in and is working on the toilet, you coming in and not knowing who the plumber is does not make the plumber guilty if he defends himself against you when you attack him. It doesn't make him guilty. Now, if stand your ground was used as the husband's defense when the husband shot the guy, he might have that. But it doesn't make the person he attacked guilty of a crime for defending himself. That's the situation. That's the one thing he doesn't have. Like, stand your ground does not extend to criminalizing defense against an attacker who is the owner of the home that you're in, and if you have a legitimate reason for being there. So that's something just wanted to clarify. But in terms of the January 6th thing, the state interfering with a defendant's ability to fund their defense is quite insidious. And this isn't something that just needs to be stopped, right? This isn't something that a judge, like making up fines to eat up that money, isn't something that a judge needs to just say no to. We need to get to a position where if a prosecuting attorney or any state prosecuting body attempts to finagle in court for a judge to do something strictly for the purpose of taking away an avenue of defense from a defendant, and no other reason but taking away an avenue of defense from the defendant, that needs to be a jailable offense, that the prosecutor, whether it's a prosecuting attorney, whether it's a state attorney general, whether it's federal prosecutors, whatever, that they should, for attempting to violate the due process rights of the accused, that they should serve a jail sentence equal to if they committed perjury of a nature that was serious enough to cause a conviction in a case where the person was innocent. Like that needs to become a thing, because this is actually tyranny. Whether you agree with what the J6 defendants did or not, whether you think they were insurgents or patriots or something in between or all of the above, which in my position is a little bit of all of the above. There was a spectrum of behaviors among that group. Like, even the worst of them, though, were not as bad as the act of taking away the due process rights.
Yeah, I mean that's plain and simple. They all deserve due process, period. And
so that needs to become an offense that is punishable. Like taking away attempting to take away the due process rights of the defense needs to be punishable. Prosecutors are not accountable when they do that. They get maybe voted out of office if their office is elected, or they get fired if their office is appointed, but not very often. Or they can get you can go through ethics commissions. None of that is good enough. Mm-hmm. If it was good enough, they wouldn't feel comfortable doing this.
Yeah. Any other thoughts on this? I think that we ran this one through pretty well. Let us know what you guys think about this in the comments. I will take a moment to discuss the last story. So I just thought this one was funny. I didn't even do a write-up or anything. I just wanted to share it. So there was this like U.S. women's soccer team, professionals, and they were trash talking a club of retired soccer players and decided to play against them. And you guess what happened?
And they probably got trounced.
Yes. So this is from the Western Journal. U.S. women's soccer team trash talks club of retirees, ends up losing 12-0. Do you know what a typical soccer score is?
Well, didn't they get beat by a bunch of teenage boys?
It's
once
not exactly
too?
the
So,
same.
I mean, like,
it's not exactly the same women, because those were like the Olympic level
Oh,
players.
God. Yeah.
Okay? That lost to high school kids.
Typical soccer
boys
score is
specifically.
0-0.
This is the thing that's it's important to make note of. It's important for people to understand. These women, they weren't beat by girls; they were beat by boys. There is such a significant difference physically between male bodies that have gone through adolescence and female bodies that have gone through adolescence that adult women are so inept in comparison that they were beat by teenage boys.
Yeah. It's almost like boys have like millions of years or however long of years of evolution and through, hardship and death and disease and, mutilation, that they come out a little bit stronger. And also the sexual selection, it's almost like that, the stuff that men had to deal with throughout history made them stronger, stronger over time. Whereas women didn't change as much, or at least not in those ways. So,
and in particular, the structure of the male body gives men more lung power, more endurance, strong upper body strength that women do not have.
Yep.
In the same size and shape. So you have, the one thing that women have on men is flexibility. We have, compared to men, all women have joint hypermobility in comparison to equivalent men.
I mean, it's handy.
Yeah. It can be. It quite can be. I mean, most guys can't put their feet behind their head.
Yeah.
Like that's if they could, they would never leave the house. But in any
It's
case,
true.
This doesn't surprise me at all.
They're just
at
yeah.
all.
I mean, it's just different, okay. But your typical soccer game,
And
I
it's
think
deserved.
it's like the score looks something like a hockey game score, where it's like 2-1 or something, right? Because it's so hard to score a goal. Like this is 12.
You wish
Go ahead.
it was 2-1, Brian. It's typically 0-0 or 0-0.
Oh yeah, 0-0. Yeah, that's all they. Yeah, that's true.
It's much the same as our equivalent of baseball is cricket, and you guys complain about how boring baseball is because it lasts 6 hours.
So
a cricket
can we
match
call this baseball?
A cricket match lasts 5 days. This is what happens with sport. We invent god awful ones, and you turn them into sexy action news sport. Sort of.
Yeah. Anyway, so yeah, just a little bit of that. A group of young women who play or played professionally on the U.S. women's national soccer team. So this is like a national team. Were full of braggadocio ahead of a match last week. That is, until they played a bunch of mostly retired men in their 40s from the UK. Oh well, that's like the that's like the cherry on top. That they were like
past their prime.
They were lads. They had
I was
to deal
waiting
with
to hear what they meant by retirees, because that was the only adjective they felt fit to furnish.
Well,
us with.
a retired
University
athlete is
power.
usually like in their 30s and 40s.
Yeah.
Look, I worked
I
with
was
women in
about to
their
say-
20s when I worked at a nursing home. I worked with women in their 20s that would get out-muscled by 80-year-old men. So this does not surprise me.
I want to hear the numbers, because as we know, 15 is the lower boundary at which amateur male soccer players can beat professional females. I want to know the upper boundary. Like
Oh, like how the
40-year-olds, that
oldest
doesn't surprise
ones?
me. Yeah, it doesn't surprise me that 40-year-olds,
Yeah, I mean, it
sports-
says that they're in their 40s, but I don't know if this has all of the details.
I reckon 50-year-olds can do it. I reckon
yeah.
60-year-olds can do it.
Yeah. There is
I'm talking about a professional like a women's football team in the prime of their lives. I want to know what's the upper boundary of men who can think that. I reckon they'd have to be in their 60s before they couldn't do it anymore. I mean, it stands to reason. Men in their 60s can beat women in their 60s. It goes all the way up and all the way down. Even in those short couple of years of puberty when girls are taller than boys. Even then, the boys are better at football because they're little wolverines, you know. They're just got the energy. I want some study that gives me more than retirees. It gives me more than men in their 40s.
Well,
I want to know the upper boundary. I want to see a team of 80-year-olds.
Yeah.
A team of women. Because I reckon that's as far as I'll push it, as far as my gambling and we'll go.
Well, these women got absolutely wrecked. There are video clips. The men that they were playing against weren't even like they weren't really like, you know, exerting themselves too much. It was super casual for them. They were just destroying these women. I'm sorry, you know, I don't take a lot of pleasure in that. I think it's funny though because there was so much boasting. That's the reason why this is a little bit, you know, like hilarious to me. They were just talking so much shit, and
I will admit I do take pleasure in that, and for specifically that reason. Like we hear all the time from feminists how women are totally equal to men. There's no difference between the sexes. Any job that a man can do, a woman can do just as well. And any time a woman isn't placed in that job, it's because she's been discriminated against, not because she doesn't seek it out, not because she can't do it, not because men can do it better or anything like that. But then any time a bunch of feminist women or a bunch of misandric women really start this bullshit of bragging that they can beat these men or those men, or disparaging a group of men, you know, as chauvinistic, or, you know, in any way, shape, or form belittling their capabilities, taunting them. Well, we could do just as good as you. We can do everything you. They get their asses kicked.
Yep.
And it's fair, and it's fun to watch, because these are the same women who lie about the wage gap and who lie and claim that men have just cruelly dominated women throughout history without having any specific advantage to do it. They just manipulate law and policy against women and blah, blah, blah. No, there are definitely differences. And it's always fun to see a lie get defeated, even if the people that got defeated don't realize that they were promoting a lie before they got defeated.
You know, I agree. I mean, I do take some pleasure in seeing them humbled. And I hope that, you know, there's some reflection, but somehow I think they're going to blame sexism. Like, because the men were taking it easy on them, and they still won 12-0. So,
yep.
But it's a bit like, you know, there are some fake martial artists who believe they can, you know,
like Steven Seagal.
No, but I'm
going to take you to the bank, the blood bank.
But you'll know the meme by now of people who think they can just punch the air and their energy just causes all of their students to fall over.
Yeah, they think
they can because they only ever work with their students, and none of them have the balls to do anything other than just go like. And then one day that master of this fake martial arts actually goes up against a real like MMA fighter, and he doesn't know what's going to happen, and he gets his ass handed to him 6 ways Sunday.
Yeah,
and it's this weird ambivalence of emotions. Like somewhere in you, it feels good that this guy's finally getting a reality check, but at the same time, it's an old man getting the shit beaten out of him.
Yeah, it's true.
It's not. You can't, and yet you can, and yet you can't, and yet you. Oh, and it's the same with this.
Like, it is. It's like
people who spend their whole lives in this delusion.
You know, you could have spared yourself if you had some humility.
The idea that one day they're going to get shadow punched out of their body and it's all going to go slow motion. And you're going to see this trail of their bodies just go out the back. It's, it's bittersweet, as they say.
Yeah.
It's so very sweet and so very, well, sad.
Well, at least these women didn't get injured. There's
the
nothing in
men
the
were,
news about them
like I
being
said, the
like
men were treating them with kid gloves.
they were embarrassed, but them being embarrassed, big fat hairy deal. People get embarrassed all the time.
Yeah,
right?
get over it. They're gonna make it illegal to
so
embarrass women.
Yeah, so they didn't get injured. They learned a lesson. They can move on. They probably won't. You're right. They'll probably cry sexism or some shit like that.
Mhm.
But they got what they asked for. When you shit talk other athletes and they beat you at the game that you shit talked to them over, you got what you requested. You requested a big plate of crow, and now you can eat it.
Yeah, absolutely. Humble pie. Have humble pie for dessert after the crow. So I got a couple
Humble pie
of.
has 4 and 20 blackbirds.
I have a couple of Rumble rants I'm going to read out, and then we're going to head into the patron show. So NovaFan21 gives us $1 and says, I was told if every business, including your grocery store, went woke, that if everyone spent half of what they needed for only buying the essentials, that the business would lose half their profits. I don't suspect that small businesses will do this because they don't have the luxury of doing that, and they're too small. I'm not saying that there wouldn't be pressure from ESG, and these other like authoritarian government programs to push on them, but I think that people like that own smaller businesses are more likely to be defiant. So I would support local businesses, unless of course they're like woke local businesses, in which case just get the coffee for free until it shuts down. Like that commie cafe that shut down because it made like pay whatever you feel like, and people did. And they couldn't pay their bills. NovaFan21 gives us $1 again. Oh, sorry.
Sorry.
Oh, no, it's okay.
I like that. That was great. Nobody paid for the coffee.
Yeah. NovaFan21 gives us $1 and says, what's great is the feminists can't even use the male aggression argument to explain the differences in outcomes between genders because the men weren't taking it seriously. Well, they can't really like make too big of a deal out of it because we all saw it. Like there's video clips all over the internet, and you can see the men. They're just there to have fun. They're not trying to crush these women. They're just having a good time. They're like, man, it feels good to get out and stretch my legs again and kick the ball around. I haven't done that in a while, and the women are like, I gotta win, and they just annihilated, just annihilated. All right, so thank you guys for the donations.
It's the practice of making women look dumb.
What?
They spent all day trying to open that jar, and the guy just came along and popped the lid in one little twist.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and they're like, "Well, I warmed it up for you. I loosened it." Anyway, so we're gonna head into the Patron Only show and look at this CBR article called "The WGA Strike is a Fight Against Everything Fandoms Claim to Hate." WGA means it's the Writers Guild Association or the Writers Guild Strike. Basically, it's a union. Because that's what they do. They complain until they get their way. Unions are also involved with this ESG stuff too, by the way. They're a big part of where this comes from, as well as human resources departments. So just letting you know what the multiple places where it comes from.
That's what I was talking about when I said unions were taken over by communists.
Yeah,
because
totally.
ESG is really just a way to. It's a vehicle for gaining control over companies in order to impose communist ideals in the end. That'll have absolutely nothing to do with the ideals behind ESG.
No, but I mean, I don't think ESG has like good intentions either. I don't think it's there for the reasons it says it is. I mean, it's all about control at the end of the day.
Right.
So, But okay, so anyway, if you want to join us, go to feedthebadger.com, start a monthly subscription. $5 a month will get you into the Discord, allow you to watch the additional content, and there's a lot of other stuff going on there as well. With all that said, thank you guys so much for coming on today's episode of HBR News. If you like this video, please hit like, subscribe if you're not already subscribed, hit the bell for notifications, leave us a comment, let us know what you guys think about what we discussed on today's show, and I will see you guys in the next video.
Men's rights activists are machines, dude. Okay? They are literal machines. They are talking point machines. They are impossible to fucking deal with, especially if you have like a couple dudes who have good memory on top of that too. Holy shit, you're fucked.
Yeah.